you are really at the forefront, working really closely with this intersection of blockchain and financial services, in particular like peer-to-peer lending. Where do you see this going in the next 5 years?
What I think is really exciting about cryptocurrencies in general is that it's programmable money, right? Like you can spin up a financial service in the span of a weekend, right? Yeah. And that's eventually going to end up yielding better products for consumers and cheaper products for consumers that have better global accessibility.
Have you encountered any resistance within the cryptocurrency space, the idea of lending in debt? Like what do you think is the perception right now of debt?
Yeah, I mean, debt is a double-edged sword, right? Like it is both a positive term in that like you can use debt financing to bootstrap your business, but it's also a negative term in terms of like, you know, student loans, things like that, the national debt. Yeah, right, exactly, right. But I think that it's important to remember that in our current financial system, like so much of our lives are powered by debt in like a positive and negative and everything in between way. It doesn't necessarily make sense to eschew that concept wholly from the new financial system that we're trying to build.
Throw it all out altogether.
Right.
So what is, in your mind, what is the ideal form of debt?
What I would like to see is informed consent, right? And so like the idea that like if you're a borrower and you're taking out a loan, you should have crystal clear understanding of what's going to happen to you if you don't repay, crystal clear understanding of how much you need to repay, and like crystal clear understanding of when that needs to happen.
Do you think like, so one of the things that's like really beautiful about blockchain is the transparency, right? Yeah. It's inherently transparent, but it's also at the same time almost difficult to interpret. Yeah. Is there a lot of focus right now, do you think, needed on the user interface to these contracts and these decentralized mechanisms?
Yeah, I mean, you're hitting it like right on the head, right? Like I think this is probably the biggest problem in the crypto space right now, more than scalability, more than kind of all the things that people like to talk about a lot. It's just really freaking hard to use these things right now, and you have to be like pretty technical. We're like in like the Xerox PARC in the 70s phase of like interacting with like these financial services, right? Like those researchers there had to like dream up these crazy ideas like computer mouses and say like, yeah, right. They had to come up with these totally new concepts for human computer interaction. And I think we're like in that phase right now for these sorts of decentralized financial services. We're trying to shoehorn our existing ways of thinking about web products onto them. And what really needs to happen is that we need to invent entirely new paradigms for user experience. And I think that it's really heartening to see the amount of energy that's starting to get poured into that by the community nowadays.
Do you think that's one of the impediments to kind of the rush of institutions coming in, financial institutions in particular? Because they have kind of this comfort level with the old systems that are very adjustable and modifiable.
Yeah. I mean, immutability is a big problem, right? Like it's like, immutability is very inconvenient for building a lot of financial applications, but it's like kind of the core value prop of what we're creating. Yeah. I think the biggest barriers to institutions actually getting involved in the space is just, it's frankly just like internal education. Right. Like, I'm talking about them like installing wallets and like using like cryptocurrencies, right? Like they don't have those mental models fully built at like a full organizational level yet, but that's kind of like the space, that's the point in history that we're in right now. And so I think that the biggest thing that needs to happen is like, you know, people who work at JP Morgan need to be like setting up wallets and using it in their day-to-day operations, which is why things like, frankly, JPM coin, like as much as we like to like, you know, like poo-poo it and stuff, I think it's a great thing. It's gonna teach a lot of people in these companies how to interact with cryptocurrencies, and that's great.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for the conversation, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit and talk. I look forward to seeing what you guys are working on in the future, and we'll see each other around.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure. Thank you.